Hey, futurist Jim Carroll from the virtual broadcast studio with another one of my shows in my series about reinvention. What is it that people do to align to a different future, to fast changing circumstances, deal with new careers, or deal with the change of just a lot of the stuff around them? Now, so far, I've interviewed a rock star, Tom Morley. He was the drummer for the 80s band Scritti Politti. A pastor in terms of what is happening with religion, an event planner. Santa Claus was part of the show. Today I'm going to talk about my good friend, Phil the Fireman. Phil DeWolf is a firefighter, and I actually golf with this fellow, and I've been fascinated by his story, which he will share with us because he started out his career as an accountant. He transitioned to becoming an active firefighter and just received his master's degree in public safety and administration. And when I talk to him, he has absolutely fascinating career goals. What I want to do is first put in perspective some context for what I'm going to talk about with Phil. And this involves fire trucks, future of fire safety. Everybody likes fire trucks. Look, one of my most fascinating gigs over the years was when I was invited in to talk to the National Firefighter Apparatus Manufacturing Association. Companies that build fire trucks. And, you know, in this type of situation, I get to go in and I get to talk about the future and all kinds of futuristic firefighting stuff. You know, the emergence, for example, of drone technology. This is actually coming. Technologies by which we can deploy drone technology to deal with fire risk issues. But in this keynote and a follow-up keynote for the National Fire Protection Association, I actually spent a lot of time talking about and researching the future of fire risk. So not just talking about futuristic technologies, futuristic fire trucks, and what happens once we see the arrival of robotic firefighters, but the rapid emergence of new fire risk. And when I spoke to the National Firefighter Apparatus Manufacturing Association, what I discovered is that their industry, the issue of firefighting, is becoming so specialized that they've had to bring about a category of people known as apparatus architects. These are the folks who look at the fire risk issues in a community, the profile of the unique risk issues they might have in that community, and what they need to do to architect the construction of a fire truck to fit that risk profile. It used to be you went and bought a fire truck, and that fire truck, you know, fit all circumstances. But society has become so complex with new technologies, new risk, new materials, all kind of stuff, that what we are witnessing is really the acceleration of new risk. And you take a fellow like Phil, this is the reality that he is emerged in. You know that I talk a lot about the reality for a lot of folks going forward is that learning is what most adults will do for a living in the 21st century. And someone like Phil is immersed in that reality because you think about the risk of what they're dealing with. You think about typical firefighting. Well, here's an example of a new risk that is emerging as we put all these solar infrastructure on top of buildings. This is a massive new risk in terms of firefighting because they really don't have an idea of what's up there. How do we manage the safety risk? How do we deal with the emergence of all kinds of new structure on top of buildings that we didn't have to deal with before? That's an example of new risk. Hoarders are a new risk because they could be walking into situations in which they have no idea what an individual has in their home, and that presents all kinds of new firefighting risk. The emergence of electric vehicles, battery technology, that presents an accelerated risk, both in terms of uncertainty and in terms of the profile of the materials that they have to use to manage the active fire. I mean, you take all of these things, and the issue of firefighting, like every other career, they're having to rapidly reinvent the emergence of new chemical risk, new risk issues in factories, as all kinds of new science comes to accelerate the challenges that they are faced with on a day-to-day basis. And that's why when you look at the future of firefighting, you know, it's kind of fascinating to think about the gear that they are now taking in when dealing with an active fire situation. And it's fascinating to think about the transition. That was a failed transition there in terms of the clicker. You think about the transition of what is happening with the manufacturer of firefighting equipment, augmented reality, drones, all kinds of new stuff. And so, you know, this brings me to my good friend Phil. Now, Phil, as I said, has had an absolutely fascinating career path. You know, he started out as an accountant, an active firefighter, but continuing to transition. I actually talked about Phil when I was on stage in Las Vegas for the National Fire Protection Association in terms of using him as an example of what we are having to do to deal with the reality of just-in-time knowledge and everything else. And what you really begin to realize as you look at this particular issue is someone like Phil is not only dealing with career invention in the same way that Tom, with the band Scritti Politti, has evolved from being a rock drummer to being a team builder, in terms of corporate gigs, or skills reinvention. How do you take a pastor and, go into this new virtual world so you're providing your spiritual guidance in an online virtual world? The world of firefighting and Phil's voyage has really wrapped up these two particular issues. So it's kind of a fascinating issue. And there's no better way to explore the concept of reinvention than to do it with Phil the firefighter. Hey, Phil, welcome to my virtual set. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Jim? Thanks.
Good. This obviously is not the golf course, and we don't have the 11th tee here with some water to get over. But we're going to have a good discussion about your reality and your career path and your reinvention. So what I got to do is I got to walk over and get away from my stage and bring myself up to the interview section. Let's start out here. You're currently working with a major fire department, but at the same time, you're working with a real estate organization, having received your master's. So, what's your current reality, and what are you doing?
Well, currently, I'm straddling two professional boundaries. So on the one hand, firefighting on the front lines, you're using the technical skills, again, dealing with COVID-19, dealing with regular fire risk, dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And on the other hand, I'm working on the policy development side, working on more strategy. So a different set of skill sets. So that would be, learning diplomacy, cultivating new relationships, breaking down the silos. So it's a unique perspective in that I'm able to see both sides of, public safety and emergency services. So it's more of a comprehensive view, and something that I'll definitely take as I move forward in my journey of reinvention.
Is that sort of reflective of the whole issue of what's happening with fire safety, fire management, fire risk, firefighting? Is it, the normal people think that you guys show up in a fire truck and, you go in and you put out the flames, but it has become a much more complex profession, issue, process, service. Have you seen vast changes in the complexity of what you're dealing with in just the last decade?
Oh, absolutely. Just to unpack that question. On the one hand, when it comes to firefighting, operations, yes. You're dealing with a whole new brand of building construction. Lightweight building construction, the glues and resins, which require different tactics and different strategies to fight those fires. Because effectively, you're fighting Class B fires. You're fighting fires that are petroleum based rather than naturally based or cotton based. And then on the flip side, to actually manage fire risk comprehensively, fire departments have moved towards more of a fire prevention strategy. They use public education, community outreach to reach demographics that wouldn't have normally been reached prior to in years past. And at the end of the day, once you take all that into account, that comprehensive fire prevention and fire suppression strategy, it's the culture and the, I guess the makeup of the fire service is a lot different than what you would have seen back in 20, 30 years ago.
And that's a key thing. Reinvention comes about simply because the industry that you're immersed in is undergoing so much change that reinvention is the core and the essence of what you got to do day by day. Now you've got a B-commerce. You started out in the world looking at finance, and you worked as an accountant for a period of time in your early years.
I did. When I was graduating university, I took a liking to accounting. So I pursued a position for a fairly large medical device company. But a year into it, I realized that it wasn't for me. My life was truly out of balance. I was pursuing this career that really didn't align with who I was. So I had an epiphany, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to let life just follow this predictable linear path. I'm going to dive into this realm of the unknown, and see what's out there for me, see what
And
aligns with
why
my
firefighting?
interests.
What led you into firefighting? I mean, an accountant to a firefighter is a bit of
Well, I mean,
an interesting transition.
a lot of failures. I'll tell you that, a lot of failures along the way to becoming a firefighter. But again, then it was deference to education, a deference to knowledge, and I started seeking advice from industry professionals, industry, in various industries, and finally, I stumbled upon firefighting,
Did you
and
get
did some
pushback?
more.
Did people say to you, like, what are you doing throwing away a perfectly good career as an accountant to become a firefighter?
Absolutely.
Because, we do live in a society in which people tend to, parse and categorize careers and professions. What was the pushback that you got along the way?
Well, that it wasn't for me. It was other people telling me that my career choice, or my future career choice, was not aligning for me. So again, it was externally dictated to me what was and what wasn't good for me, and I decided to control
There's
that.
kind of a really key point there, because I had a similar event. I mean, I'm an accountant as well. I'm a chartered accountant, chartered public accountant, whatever we're called this year. And I got very involved with email and technology in like 1982, and I saw something coming that would eventually be the internet. And I was giving up my career as an accountant, and I had people saying to me, "Why are you giving up this perfectly good career as an accountant to get involved in this technology stuff, which is going to go nowhere?" So you just determined to push your way through that, and you ignored the naysayers along the way.
I did. You had to. You had to. You had to move away from the noise. And I had support from the people that mattered most to me. At the time, it was my girlfriend, and my parents. And my sister. So was it four people? And that's all I cared. And they supported my decision to become a firefighter. But with that. Uh, with that change came a whole new package of skills. I had to relearn everything, because I wasn't so much moving more to a career that was founded, or based on strategy and numerical strategy for that matter. But it was more, technical. It was using my hands. It was getting out there in the field and interacting with clients face to face. And again, those were skills that I had to relearn. So I went back to school.
So reinvention, sort of the process of get through the naysayers, go against the pushback, be prepared to pursue it. Did you find that you had more passion for what you were doing in this new world than what you're doing previously with an accountant? Did you sort of recognize early on that I've made the right decision, or are you sort of, what have I done?
Well, the biggest difference was that I had belief in myself. So when I was pursuing the career in finance, I was going through the motions. I really truly was not committed. Whereas when it came to firefighting, I was 100% committed, and I had belief in myself. I had confidence in myself, and I just I went with it, and I figured, what's the worst that could happen? I'm already starting from scratch, so really, I could just chalk this up as another failure and another learning point, to go ahead to use in my process of reinvention. But I knew deep down inside that firefighting, the profession of firefighting, was aligned with who I was.
Now, but it's not all a bed of roses. I know when you and I have golfed, you've expressed a lot of the stories of the challenges you're dealing with, and there's a really negative downside to the act of firefighting. It's not what we in the public think in terms of what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And that's the one area that I had to face, or I had to ask myself those honest and hard questions. Was I willing to, was I going to be able to manage those situations, personally and professionally?
And we're talking
Yeah.
opioids. We're talking the fact that a huge amount of your day is dealing with the drug crisis and really
That's
challenging
correct.
emotional and complex and difficult emotional moments. I mean, I've asked you before, like, how do you deal with that baggage, and how do you deal with the emotional turmoil? And there's probably something that is important here for folks, as they deal with COVID-19. I mean, everybody's going through this complex time. How do you parse and deal with that? How do you make those emotional challenges of dealing with active opioid cases, go away?
I don't think they'll ever go away, but it's how to effectively manage those situations, personally and professionally. And I found a key aid in my ability to manage these situations is reading books on spirituality and just reading books on life and life will shape individual perspectives. Life will shape individual choices. And at the end of the day, we can only do so much to help someone. And you need to have. There's two sides to that equation. One, we're here to help, and I'm glad to help, and I'll give everything that I can to help that individual. But on the flip side, the individual needs to help themselves as well. And how do you do that? You do that through education. You can't do that through enforcement and patience, time, understanding, and that's how I deal with those situations.
So you're a few years into this, and you're working on a regular basis and a lot of shift work and a lot of active situations. What started to lead you down the master's path? And let's start here. What is the master's degree that you just put your thesis together around, and what led you down here? I mean, accountant to firefighter, and now you're pursuing a master's in public safety. Lead us down this path?
Well, again, so I'm currently employed as a firefighter, professional firefighter, and in my profession, there was something bigger, and there was something more that I had to offer to the universe. So I started again. I just started just perusing the internet and just seeing what else was out there. And not so much that I wanted a career change, but what else could I offer, whether it be the firefighting profession or public safety as in the field of public safety. So I stumbled upon the master's degree at York University, a master's in disaster and emergency management, and it again focused on public safety. And I applied. I was accepted, and 3 years later, I've graduated with a master's degree in disaster and emergency management, and was fortunate enough to find a secondary position with a real estate company that focused more on health, safety, and emergency management, and was more geared towards strategy and policy development. So effectively, I'm working both jobs.
But I mean, again, coming back to the public view, I mean, we view firefighting as a lot of gruff individuals and a lot of big lanky guys and ladies that go out and do active duty. I would imagine that you are a bit of a unique individual in the particular firefighting service that you work for. There's not a lot of guys out there, ladies, that have a master's degree. Did you get pushback from within the ranks? Did you get pushback from the administration? I think this is a big part of reinvention, is people are having to deal with pushback all the time. So far you've had pushback, accountant to fireman, and now fireman to a master's in emergency management. Did you get pushback, or was there support, or was there a mixture of everything?
It was a mixture of everything. I mean, it's the same. Whenever one decides to reinvent themselves, they will always find pushback, regardless. They'll always find the naysayers. So it's moving away from that noise. And again, it goes back to believing in yourself and believing in the process. And the choices that you make, you need to believe in those choices. You can't just make a choice arbitrarily and then just go with it. I mean, these choices that I've made, stopping the pursuit of a career in finance, pursuing a career in firefighting, pursuing my master's. I mean, these choices were not made lightly. I mean, there was a lot of assessment, a lot of discussion, and knowing that full well that there was going to be a lot of hard work and there was going to be very challenging times. Again, when you're learning something new, you're learning new skills. It is challenging because you're not only challenging, those individuals that don't share the same view, but you're challenging yourself in ways that you've never thought possible. And sometimes you learn things not only about yourself professionally, but personally as well. And then you use those tools to further that pursuit of reinvention.
Did you have some fear along the way though? Did you like, have I, bitten off more than I can chew, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, it's that belief system and just being accepting of the fact that you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be perfect, and there are going to be bumps along the road. But it's how you deal with those bumps. You can take that pessimistic view and take those bumps and let that deter you from your ultimate goal, or you can take those bumps along the road, learn from them, and move on, and have that and carry that optimistic view that you will conquer. I mean,
So
at the end of the day,
we'll come to the role that you're doing currently with the real estate firm, but you just said the phrase "ultimate goal," and that grabbed my attention. I'm not a very good interviewer. I interrupt a lot. What is the ultimate goal? Do you have one, or is it something that's being continually redefined?
it's redefined. Again, the one thing that I discovered through this process of reinvention that I think a lot of people are starting to discover now with COVID-19, this pandemic, is that we need more flexibility in our lives. We need to be more amenable to outside forces and how they're going to shape our reality, and using the external forces to our advantage. You may have a perceived goal in mind, but again, outside forces, i.e., pandemic or something that was outside of your control, may push you in a different direction. I never thought in a million years that I would pursue a master's degree in disaster emergency management.
Is part of that reinvention mindset then deciding that you need to have more control over your future, your destiny, at the same time
right.
that outside events like come along and hammer me in terms of what I'm doing, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I've got a path.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, at the end of the day, there are forces outside of our control. Those outweigh our personal control. But what we can control is the choices that we make. The perspectives we have on life. You can take a pessimistic or an optimistic view. I mean, all those things will help shape that journey of reinvention. So yeah, it's taking control back.
And I'm living that each and every moment that I come down here and get in the studio and work on something just to try to enhance what it is, my skills. It's putting me back in control, because I mean, I lost control of my Las Vegas stage life with the pandemic, and had to do something to try to bring it back. So that's probably a key part of reinvention. But we've got some people watching on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and I think if you leave a comment in the comment section, I might actually be able to toss it up on the screen here. So your master's is so it's a master's in public safety and administration. Is that what it's called?
No, it's a master's in disaster and emergency management.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it falls under the field of public safety. Correct.
So what was your thesis on? What was the project or study that you embarked on as part of that process?
So when I first embarked on this the master's degree, I figured much of it was going to be based on things that I had already known, incident management systems, the various types of disaster emergency disasters and emergencies. But as I went through the years, or as I studied throughout my studies, I realized that it was more. I mean, it was social science based, and I really started to appreciate infectious diseases. I remember doing my research on various types of disasters and emergencies, and realize what is the one, what would be one event or one phenomenon that would literally bring the world to a standstill. So barring a meteor hitting Earth, or a nuclear war, it was infectious diseases. And it's just, I mean, I can't write it. I could never write this in a book, but in my second year, I started researching epidemic influenza, or the annual flu, which then in the next semester, I did a research project on the opioid epidemic. And then my last project was a project on pandemic influenza. And it just so happened that was January of 2020. So that project took me to April 2020. And yeah, that was my last project, my last course.
January, I mean, I was starting to watch the news coming out, and I think I was starting to realize, something bad was going on, but you were probably freaking out by that point in time that, holy cow, all the things I've just been studying and researching and have been focused on, I'm getting this news here, which is kind of, uh-oh.
Well, and it just so happened that my professor at the time was a subject matter expert in pandemics. And I'll never forget it. The first class, we did our regular introductions, and the question was, okay, so introduce your name and then tell me what you're doing this summer. So the 19 of us went around, and he said, okay, well, you can cancel all your plans for the summer of 2020, because there's a situation unfolding in Asia right now that will be a pandemic. And I remember for the first month, so the month of January, I didn't believe him. And then as we started studying this emerging situation, a lot of what he was saying was right on the money. And I remember he was saying to us that likely, the week of March 11th or the week before March break, things are going to be shutting down. And in January, we didn't believe him, but mid-February, I was I was a believer. And sure enough, a lot of the things that we discussed in that semester have unfolded.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So we'll come to your next career in a moment, but what I'm hearing here is a little bit of reinvention can be serendipity, the serendipitous moment that what you've been focused on all of a sudden becomes real. And I think that happened with me in 1993. I mean, I'd been online for 10 years and talking about technology, and I'm on predecessors to the internet, and trying to tell people there's this world coming which is going to be incredible. And then I wrote a little book that was about how to use the internet, and boom, it was a #1 bestseller, and we sold 1 million books, and life got weird. So serendipity can be a big part of reinvention. You don't have to know exactly where you're going, as long as you're making great time. And it was sort of your mindset. I'm not going to stop at firefighting, but there's this whole disaster management aspect to firefighting, which is interesting to me, and I got to keep my mind engaged and involved. And so I'm going to keep on learning.
And it was funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because firefighting is just one aspect to this greater world of not greater, but a bigger world of public safety and disaster emergency management. And I had this thirst for knowledge, and I wanted to learn more. So again, I figured the best thing to do is pursue a master's. I was fortunate enough to graduate the Bachelor of Commerce, and I figured if this degree will definitely shed more light on my curiosity and my interest. And it just so happened serendipity occurred, and unfortunately the pandemic hit. But again, who thought that I never in a million years would have thought that I would ever be studying epidemic influenza or pandemic influenza. Never in a million years. And here I am.
I'm gonna write this phrase down while I don't forget it. Serendipitous curiosity. I think that's something that you just defined. I mean, if you've got curiosity about the world and you've got this desire to learn, and you might not know exactly where it's going to take you, but you can suddenly, have circumstances come about that something
That's right.
wonderful begins to
I
happen.
mean, just exactly. And timing is everything. So, fortunately, when it was funny because I was hired with this real estate firm prior to graduating university. But yeah, now I'm in a position where my boss and I have developed this pandemic and these pandemic plans, these policies and procedures, and it's been a huge learning experience. But I'm soaking up as much as I can because this is definitely going to help me in the future for whatever I intend to do at this
So
point.
what is your role with the real estate group now? Then it's providing them guidance on if we have any number of potential disaster scenarios. Here's how we manage it. Here's how we plan for it. Here's the resources. What is it that you're bringing them in terms of the skill set that you have?
So so my role is an emergency management specialist, and it was more dealing with business continuity and emergency response plans, training. There's a lot of health and safety training, but COVID-19 and this pandemic has kind of soaked up all the limelight, and most of my efforts have been concentrated on managing this national program, from British Columbia to Newfoundland, and there's so many different variables, and each province is managing or handling this pandemic in different ways that it is definitely shaping how we as a corporation are going to develop these pandemic plans. So a lot of it has been reading legislation and understanding the language and legislation, which again, never thought I'd ever be doing that, but here I am. Not saying that I'm ever going to become a lawyer, but it's definitely been a learning experience.
Did you see yourself doing this type of thing 10, 15 years ago when you were, the accountant guy, that you'd be dealing with this type of stuff?
No, no, it was when I had that epiphany back when I was 24. It was one of those situations where it's kind of like the Matrix, where you take the one pill, you can go down this predictable linear path, and you take the next pill, and it's a journey into the unknown. It's chaos, it's unpredictability. Now, at the time, I was fortunate enough that I had age as a benefit. I was young and I didn't really have any sort of familial responsibility, but I didn't know what to expect, and what I wanted to do was start with a fresh slate. I wanted to basically reinvent myself, professionally, personally, and spiritually, which I did. And then
pursue a passion, take risk in a situation of absolute uncertainty and lack of clarity. I mean, that's really what you did.
Yeah,
you jumped over that
absolutely.
cliff and just like, I'll see where it goes.
And that's exactly the mindset at that time. Was you got to go. I believed that the situation that I was in, pursuing that career in finance, was not for me. That's what I knew. I knew that to the core, that is not what I wanted to do in my life. Life was passing me by, and it was a life without balance. And so to restore that balance, or shift the scales of the balance, I needed to dive in headfirst into uncertainty, which I did. And now, I have this thirst for knowledge and this curiosity that's never quenched. I mean, it's
so there might be people out there that they're trapped in a career, they're trapped in a situation, they're trapped in a mundane existence of, hey, it's Groundhog Day and every day is the same, and I'm bored out of my head, and I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, and that's what you did. Was you took the risk with uncertainty, and some serendipity happened because of your curiosity and your thirst to learn. And I mean, there's a powerful lesson right there. Do you have any idea where you're going to be in 10 years? What you're going to be doing in 10 years? Is there a grand plan for your reinvention, or is it just sort of, I'm going to wing it and see where it goes?
Well, there was a grand plan, but I don't know if that's kind of been, I wouldn't say sidetracked, but I don't know if I need to kind of reshape that. You know, there was that goal to become, into a fire administration, but I don't know at this point. Again, I'm in situ, so I'm managing. I am where I am, so I am straddling these two professional boundaries. I love what I do, so for me, it's not work. Yes, very early mornings, very late nights, but it's not work for me. I love it, and I'm learning so much, and I have a lot of support with the people that matter most. And again, I have belief in the process. I have a belief in the process of reinvention, um, which will again will take me to areas that I never thought possible. So again, I did have a goal when I decided to embark on the master's degree, and it's changed a bit. To where it goes, I don't know.
So yeah,
um,
originally as we spoke, you were thinking, well, I'll maybe move my way up the ranks in, a fire service somewhere in Canada, and, chief administration. But now pandemic and everything is skewed and everything has changed, and I don't know exactly where it's going, but I've got sort of a unique set of skills that might take me there. And this sort of fits into what I talk about and preach about a lot, is that we're in a situation in which jobs that don't yet exist will be prevalent in 10 years. And so when you're thinking reinvention, I mean, there's just unprecedented, unbelievable opportunity. And the fact of the matter is that this pandemic is not disappearing overnight. It's not like we all get a vaccine and we all go back to where we were before. We're building a new and complex society, and you've got a lot of strong views on that and the role that public safety disaster management will play going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's going to be new risks out there that we won't be able to foresee. But again, stick to the basics. Keep you got to keep yourself educated. You got to at least break away from the silo, and talk with people in other industries, or other departments for that matter. Have team bonding experiences, but again, break that silo down, and invite other people from other departments. I mean, it's fascinating what you can learn through conversation, and engagement with other people. And again, that's what's helped me along the way as well. Is that again, curiosity. I'm curious, always willing to learn, and always willing to ask the questions, and staying humble. You're One will never be the expert. I mean, it's what is an expert? Someone may have more information than another, more information, more training than the next person, but really, there's always something new to learn in the field.
So,
It's just a matter of someone taking control of their ability to desire to learn, and to have belief in themselves.
so if you were to give one piece of advice to somebody who's sort of caught in an accounting career, not to use that as an example, but somebody who's feeling sort of trapped, and I'm in a dead end career. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. I got to do something. What would you say to them?
That's tough. I mean, you'd have to. I would tell them that accept the choices that you've made, accept the choices that one has made, and accept the reality that they find themselves in. But if you're truly unhappy about that, it's time to make a change. It's never too late to make a change. You need to assess the current situation and see where you can make that change. See where you can make different choices to bring you to a different path. I'm not saying everything's going to be rosy on the path of reinvention or on that path of change, but we need to become, more flexible to what's out there, and to emerging technologies, and and just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. Well, Phil, this is absolutely fantastic, and I know the very first time I heard the story, an accountant, a firefighter, and then I knew you were pursuing your master's at the time, and we've had a lot of absolutely fascinating, wonderful discussions out in the golf course, and reinvention. I mean, I think you're the a prime example of what is possible, and not following a traditional career path throughout your life. So I'm certainly looking forward to continuing our discussions and seeing where you go next. So You know, stick with me on this show. I'm hoping next week to do a complete right turn. So far, I've had interview with a rock star, interview with a pastor, interview with an event professional, interview with a firefighter, interview with Santa Claus. And if it all works out next week, interview with an ex-con, a fellow I've been talking to, who has certainly seen some difficulties in his life and is now pursuing a complete path of reinvention. So, Phil, thanks for coming in. Stay on while I play the my show close, and we'll talk in just a moment.
Thanks, Jim.